Katina. Hello, everyone. It is important to acknowledge that we are hosting this program tonight on the traditional unceded territory of the Anishinaabe Algonquin people. Many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people now live, work, and study in this territory. Welcome, and thank you for joining us tonight. The Ottawa Public Library is celebrating Media Literacy Week, an annual event promoting digital media literacy across Canada, taking place each October. My name is Nathan. I work for the Ottawa Public Library, and I'm so happy to be here with you tonight for Explore Digital Parenting. Before we start, I just have a few things to tell you. If you've chosen to use your camera, please do know that this meeting is recorded and others can see you. You can always use the stop video button to turn off the camera if you don't want to be seen. Everyone is currently muted. Oh, sorry, I have dogs. Everyone is currently muted so that we can hear our presenter clearly. And if you have any questions during the presentation tonight, please put them in the chat so that you don't forget them. And at the end of the presentation, there will be a question and answer period where our presenter will answer your questions as they have come forward in the chat. At the end of the presentation, you'll also be able to unmute and ask your questions live if you would prefer to do that as well. During the program, if you have any technical difficulties or anything else, you can also use the chat to let me know, and then I will do my best to resolve the issue. We also have closed captioning, so if you require closed captioning, you can click the CC button at the bottom of your screen, and it will display live captioning. And now it is my pleasure to introduce Matthew Johnson, our guest this evening. Matthew Johnson is the Director of Education for Media Smarts, Canada's Centre for Digital Media Literacy. He is the architect of Access, Use, Understand, Create, Digital Media Literacy Framework for Canadian K-12 schools, and the author of many of Media Smart's parents, youth, and classroom resources, including Break the Fake, which returned the beloved House Hippo to Canadian screens. I grew up on the House Hippo, so this is very meaningful to me. He is a member of the Canadian Pediatric Society's Digital Health Task Force and has served as an expert on panels convened by the Sex Information and Education Council of Canada and the Information and Privacy Commissioner of Ontario's Strategic Priorities Advisory Committee. Now enjoy the program. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going to get my slides up and just want to confirm that people are seeing them. All right, so welcome to our session on exploring digital parenting. As you heard, my name is Matthew Johnson, and as well as working for Media Smarts, I am a parent of two boys, one who's just entered his teens and one who's just about to, and both of them, of course, as most kids are enthusiastic users of media of all kinds, including digital media. And so what we're going to be talking about tonight are challenges that we as a family have dealt with over time in many cases. So now let me tell you, or let me show you a little bit more about Media Smarts for those of you who may not be familiar with us.
Welcome to Media Smarts. Media is all around us. We see and use it in every aspect of our lives. On TV, on the radio, and of course online, where we can find and do almost anything. It can all be a little overwhelming, and that's where Media Smarts can help. We believe that Canadians of all ages need critical thinking skills so they can be active, informed, and resilient digital citizens. Media Smarts is an internationally recognized leader in digital and media literacy. We build evidence-based, age-appropriate, and tested resources for students, teachers, parents, and all Canadians to help build these essential skills. We also conduct groundbreaking research that gives a voice to Canadians' youth and informs all of the work we do. Interested? Here's how we can help. You can start by learning the basics with our Media Literacy and Digital Literacy 101 resources. Then explore our lesson plans, games and quizzes, tip sheets and guides, tutorials and workshops, videos. Oh, and one very important special guest, Canada's beloved House Hippo. Our free online learning resources cover topics like misinformation, cyberbullying, sexting, online hate, online privacy and safety, digital citizenship, body image, media violence, diversity and gender in media, digital well-being and screen time, and more. Choose a topic, a research report, a lesson plan, a workshop, or a game, and get learning about digital and media literacy. Let's get started. We're so glad you're here.
So before we get started, I'd like you to take a moment to think about what you might want to get from this workshop. You don't have to answer out loud or even in the chat, but just think about what are some things that you or your kids do online? What are some things that you'd like to do with your kids or you'd like them to be able to do? And what are some things that you worry about when your kids are online? It's not news. The internet can make it a lot easier to do things like watch TV and movies, keep in touch with friends and family, and share family news. More and more kids need to use the internet to do their schoolwork. It's also not surprising that a lot of parents worry about letting their kids use the internet, whether they're playing video games, watching YouTube, texting, or using social networks. A lot of parents feel like it's hard to keep up with what their kids are doing online. There's no one right way to be a parent, online or offline, but there are some simple things that will let you help your kids when they're using the internet. While the internet has made being a parent harder, what kids need from us hasn't changed. That's why, even without being a technical expert, there are 5 things you can do that will keep you on top of things. First, don't panic. Second, talk to your kids. Third, be a part of their online lives. Fourth, be the person they come to when they have problems. And finally, set rules for them to follow and share the values you expect them to live by, online and offline. First of all, don't be scared. It can help to think of the internet as being like a swimming pool. We know that pools can be dangerous, but we also know that the best way to keep our kids safe there is to teach them how to swim so they can keep themselves safe. Even when it comes to technology, kids almost always turn to their parents for help when they have problems or questions. When they do, they're not usually coming for help with the technology. What our kids need from us is guidance, so they're ready to deal with problems before they happen, and support when things do go wrong. A good example of this is how we talk to our kids about sexting. It can be tempting to use scare tactics to try to convince them not to send sexts, but not only does this not work, it can actually backfire. Instead, give your kids the guidance they need to make good decisions and make sure they know you'll be there if they need help. So what should we tell kids about something like sexting? Well, first, it's not true that everybody does it. Even among the oldest teens, fewer than half have ever sent a sext, and the numbers for younger kids are much, much, much lower. Make sure kids know that once a photo or a video is shared with anyone, even with a disappearing photo app like Snapchat, there's a chance it could be copied and could stay online forever. Even if kids do know that, though, they usually think they can trust their friends or romantic partners not to share a sext. So we have to remind them that people sometimes do surprising things when they're angry or upset, like if you're no longer friends with someone, or if they've just broken up with someone. It's important to talk to kids about healthy relationships and sexual health as they get older. Research has found that kids with differing abilities are more vulnerable to sexual exploitation online because they're often overprotected, isolated, and not seen as sexual beings. Part of helping kids is making sure that they know not to respond to pressure to send a sext to anyone, whether they know that person offline or not. Encourage them to think about the difference between being liked for who you are and being popular, and tell them that they should never share anything online that they don't want to. What's more important than talking to kids about sending sexts, though, is talking to them about sharing sexts. While sending sexts isn't usually a good idea, it doesn't do any harm so long as their sexts aren't being used to harass someone. The harm comes when somebody shares a sext without the consent of the original sender. The problem is that a lot of kids believe it's the sender's fault if sexts get shared, or that if a sext has already been shared, there's no further harm in sharing it again. Of course, neither of those are true. Kids who believe in excuses like these are 5 times more likely to share a sext than those that don't. That's why we need to make sure our kids know there's never any excuse for sharing sexts unless the person who sent them has clearly told you they don't mind. These short Media Smarts videos, our No Excuse series, are a quick, funny way to get the conversation started. And if you visit the website at bit.ly/there's no excuse, you'll find there are tip sheets to help you use those videos as a conversation starter, and also a lesson plan so they can be used in a classroom. Now, the single most important thing about digital parenting is to openly talk to your kids about what they do online. Don't wait until things have already gone wrong. As soon as they start using internet devices, you need to talk to them about how you expect them to behave and what to do if things do go wrong. Once you've started that conversation, keep it going. New issues will come up as your kids get older. Your kids will start doing different things and they'll start to push boundaries. So you need to check in with them regularly. When you talk to your kids, don't try to scare them into staying safe. Whether you're trying to scare them with what might happen if they do something wrong, or with what you will do to them if they do something wrong, scare tactics don't usually convince kids, especially teens. Doing it can also make them think that some bad behaviors are more common than they really are. But they can also keep your kids from coming to you if they need help, if they're mainly worried about being punished or getting in trouble. Instead, think of your kids' online lives as being like their school or like the playground. For example, you probably know the names of your kids' friends. And I'm sure you also talk to them about what's happening in their classes. Well, the same should be true of their online lives. The more you talk about what they do, the easier it'll be. And if you start early, they'll be more willing to keep talking to you once they're in their teens. As much as you can, try to keep your talk positive. You want to understand what things your kids are doing online, what's exciting about it to them, so you can ask them to show you some cool things they've been doing online. Now, you may not feel like a tech expert, but don't assume that your kids are either. They do learn new things quickly when they first start using a new app or a new game, but that doesn't mean they understand everything. A lot of times kids learn just enough to do what they want, but they may not know what to do if things go wrong. They also don't always know how to deal with their feelings or handle problems with their friends. This can be extra hard online where you can't see or hear the people that you're talking to. That's just one of the ways in which they need the guidance and support that kids have always needed from us. What your kids are watching, playing, and doing online is a big part of the person that they're turning into. And their online lives can be just as important to them as the real world. Younger kids are usually glad when their parents show an interest in the things that they like, so get them to show you how their new favorite game works or why they're so excited about joining a new social network. Now, one of the questions we hear most often is, how closely should parents watch their kids when they're online? Spying on kids sends a signal that you don't trust them, which will make it harder to talk to them about what's happening in their online lives. It also means that if something goes wrong, they'll be more worried about hiding it from you than getting your help. Now, with younger kids or with kids of any age that have shown bad judgment, it might make sense to monitor their activities closely, but you should be open about the fact that you're doing it and why you're doing it. What's more important in either case, whether you're monitoring them technologically or not, is to have kids only use the internet in a part of the house where there are other people, like the kitchen or the living room. That way, you can just look over their shoulder now and then and check in what they're doing. Of course, once your kids have a smartphone, it's a lot harder to control where they can use the internet. Even if they don't have a data plan, they can use their phones anywhere there's Wi-Fi, like a coffee shop or a public library. If you're trying to decide whether or not to let them get a phone, the question really is whether you think they're ready to use the internet without you being there with them. If your kids already have a smartphone, it's all the more important to talk to them about what they're doing and to make sure they know how you expect them to behave. The other big question is whether and when to let your kids join a social network such as Instagram or Snapchat and TikTok and so on. There are a lot of different social networks, but when it comes to privacy, there are really only two kinds of social networks we need to be aware of. Some social networks are open. Anything you post on an open network can be seen by anyone who chooses to follow you, and you don't automatically see what they post. So Twitter, YouTube, Pinterest, and TikTok are all open social networks. On closed social networks, two people have to decide to friend one another. Only your friends can see what you post, and you can see what they post. Facebook and Instagram are examples of closed networks. Now, most social networks have rules that only kids 13 and older can use them, but they don't often enforce those rules. And if your kids are 10 or older, there's a good chance some of their friends are already using social networks. Here are some questions that you can ask to see if your kids have thought about why they might want to use a social network and if they're ready to deal with things that might go wrong. For instance, why do you want to use it? What do you like about it? Who would you use it to connect with? Who do you know who's already on it? How can you control who can connect with you? How can you control who sees what you post on it? What can you do if somebody sees or shares something that you didn't mean them to? And what can you do if someone is bothering you or being mean to you? Answering these questions together can be a great way, first of all, of helping your kids learn how to use the platform safely, and also starting that great conversation that you need to have with them about what they're doing on that social network. Once they're using a social network, tell your kids to ask themselves 4 questions before posting anything. First, is this how I want people to see me? Second, could somebody use this to hurt me? Third, would I be upset if they shared it with others? And what's the worst thing that could happen if I shared this? So we can take a few minutes to think about a social network that we've heard of but don't know much about. And we'll use TikTok as an example. Let's ask a few questions about it. So first of all, is it open or closed? So does that means can people see your content without you approving it? Does it have a safety center? Most apps do have a safety center or a parent center that have a lot of great safety resources. So you want to know if there is one and how you can find it. Do its privacy tools let you control who can see what you post, who can contact you, and who can tag you? And are its terms of service, that is to say, the rules you agree to when you're using it, readable? And if not, is there a readable version of them or them somewhere online? So we might start by looking up TikTok at Common Sense Media. And the website is commonsensemedia.org. This is a website that gives parent ratings for movies, video games, websites, books, and so on. And you can see here that even though many younger kids use TikTok, the site and the parents who've left reviews suggest you wait until kids are 15 or older. The kid reviewers, on the other hand, say it's okay for 13-year-olds. Like a lot of social networks, TikTok does have a safety center, but it's not that easy to find. From the TikTok website, it's that tiny little link at bottom left. See, way down there. So a lot of the time, rather than trying to find the link from the app itself or from the website, it's easier to search for the name of the platform and the words Safety Center or Parent Center. So go to Google and search for TikTok Safety Center or TikTok Parent Center. So here is what the Safety Center look like. You can see once you find it, they do have a lot of resources to answer our questions. So what are the answers? Well, first, while it is an open network, users 15 and under have their accounts set to private. Well, that's assuming they gave their true age. Private means only friends can see and comment on videos. Nobody can use the duet or stitch function to make videos that include theirs, and users can't send or receive direct messages. So it's pretty private. Now, you can also set older users' account to private by going to settings, that's the 3 dots in the upper right corner, then selecting privacy and then privacy account. To change comment settings, we select privacy and then comment filters. Now, if you decide to let your child get a TikTok account, you can go explore the privacy settings with them, so you both know how to control who sees what. To do that, we tap those 3 bars at top right, then tap Settings and Privacy down at the bottom left. So that appears when you tap those 3 bars. We get those 2 options, Creator Tools and Settings and Privacy. We tap that. Next, we tap Privacy. It's second from the top there under Manage Account. And now we can move that slider. You see that green slider up at the top. We can move it to Private Account if it isn't set already. And we can also limit who can comment on videos, as well as filtering comments in different ways. So for instance, right now we can set it that only people who follow you can comment, or we can set it to friends, followers that you follow back. You're also able to control who's able to message you, who's able to mention you, and who can duet with your videos. That is, add their own audio and video to a video that you've posted. Now, you'll probably be tempted to choose the strictest privacy settings for each of these, but remember that sharing and collaborating with people and getting feedback like comments is a big part of why kids want to use a platform like TikTok. So it's generally better to start with slightly more open settings, like maybe letting friends duet and keeping an eye on things from there. You can also limit who can send private messages to an account, and the digital well-being tool lets you set screen time limits and turn on restricted mode, which blocks some content from being shown. Now, at this time, TikTok doesn't allow any explicit sexual content, but when we tested TikTok with restricted mode, both off and on, we found there was a lot less suggestive and sexual content when it was turned on. So I strongly recommend that you have your kids start with restricted mode turned on. If you want to supervise your child a bit more directly, it's built into TikTok. You can use what's called family pairing. That lets you set screen time limits, turn restricted mode on, and set the account to private all by yourself. To do that, though, you need to have set up your own TikTok account. Then you need to log into TikTok on your child's device, go to Family Pairing and select Teen, and then scan this QR code with your own phone. So they don't make it that easy. And again, to do it, you have to have made your own TikTok account. Now, one thing that kids should stay away from is social networks or messaging apps that are totally anonymous. Social networks where you use your real name or make a permanent account with a fake name are generally pretty safe, so long as you use them carefully. But ones where you don't have any permanent identity are dangerous because people don't feel like what they do there will have any consequences. Kids mostly want to connect online with people that they know offline, so these fully anonymous apps don't stay popular for long. There's a long list of ones that have been briefly successful and then faded, from Ask FM to Whisper to Omegle, but they sometimes do get very popular for a while, so it's important that kids know why they're not a good idea. The same, of course, is true with apps whose point is to connect you with people you don't already know. Kids sometimes try these for the thrill of breaking rules against talking to strangers, but they need to know that they're likely to see things on these apps that they really did not want to see. Now, social networks and games can also take up a lot of time, and it can be hard to turn them off. Parents have been bothering their kids to turn off devices for generations, long before the internet. But there are some things about digital media that are different from things like TV. For one thing, you never run out of it. There's always another video to watch, another level to play, another post to respond to. It's also extra absorbing because in games and social networks, you're not just watching, you're playing or connecting with other people, usually people that you know. All of these devices, all of these platforms, all these games and apps have also been built to keep people, especially kids, using them and coming back to them. That is how they make money. And so a lot of parents worry that their kids are using screens too much. It is important to pay attention to how much time your kids are spending using screens, but most of the time, it's probably not a serious problem. Here are a few signs that it might be. First, have your kids lost interest in other things, especially things that they used to enjoy? Do you often have trouble getting them to stop what they're doing online? And when I say that, I don't mean that you have to ask them 2 or 3 times to come to dinner. I mean that full-on tantrums not being willing to stop. Do they get angry or upset when they can't use screens at a time they expected to? So if there was a time when they thought they were going to play a game or use their phone and plans change and they can't, does that make them really upset? And finally, is screen use the only thing that can cheer them up when they're feeling low? Now, even if it's not a serious problem, you probably do want to take steps to manage your kids' screen time. What's been found to work best isn't setting a time limit, but setting certain times and places where using screens is allowed and others when it isn't. For instance, consider keeping screens out of kids' bedrooms. You can also say that they aren't allowed during family activities, like at meal times or when you're all out doing something together. More than limiting screen time, try to steer kids to positive screen activities. That can mean activities that they do with other people, especially if the people are in the same place they are. For instance, playing video games together with a friend instead of alone. Things that make you move, active uses of digital technology, creative things like making videos, and educational activities. CBC, PBS, and other public channels have lots of educational games on their websites. And there are also great games and apps that can teach everything from math to coding. It's also important to pay attention to what's in the things your kids are watching and playing online. YouTube is the most popular app or website for kids of all ages, but there are a lot of things on it that you don't want your kids to watch. If your kids watch YouTube, make sure that you've turned off autoplay. If it's switched on, the next video in the list will automatically play after the current one is done. Now, that's not always a problem if it's just one more Minecraft video, though it does make it harder to tell kids that it's time to stop. But sometimes videos can lead to unexpected places. So there you can see. To turn off autoplay, just slide that toggle so that it turns gray. So it's right there, right next to the closed captioning button, and you just slide it so that it turns gray. Now, if you have a Google account and you're signed in, you'll only have to do this once. If you don't have a Google account, you'll have to do this step on every device and browser that your child uses. Another thing you can do if you're logged in is to turn on restricted mode. Restricted mode keeps YouTube from playing videos that might not be appropriate for kids, and it also hides the comment section. You can turn it on by clicking on your profile picture and then changing restricted mode to on. On a phone or a tablet, you'll need to tap your profile picture, tap settings, then general, and then slide restricted mode on. 2 other things you'll want to know about YouTube are channels and playlists. Because everyone with a Google account can post on YouTube, It's useful to find creators and channels that you know won't have inappropriate content. So we can click on the name of the account to see all the videos they've posted. A lot of well-known TV shows like Sesame Street, broadcasters like CBC Kids have their own YouTube channels. If you don't know anything about a channel, you can scroll through the videos and watch a few with your kids to make sure they don't have anything that you don't want them to see. You can also create playlists in YouTube so that your kids can only watch videos that you've chosen ahead of time. Now, this can be a bit more work, but it's the surest way to keep them from finding something that you don't want them to watch. To add videos to a playlist, start by clicking the like button, that's the thumbs up underneath the video. If you're using a YouTube on a laptop or desktop computer, you can then click the three bars at the top right, click Show More, and then click Liked Videos to see the list of videos that you've liked. Next, click the three dots at top right and click Save to Playlist. So first you like it, then you look for videos that you've liked, and then you save to playlist. Now you can create a new playlist. We'll call this one Arthur, since it's for episodes of the TV show Arthur. And then choose whether you want your playlist to be private, which means only you can see it, public, which means anyone on YouTube can see it, or unlisted, which means you can send people a link to see it. And you can get together with other parents to make playlists and share them with one another. Once you've created a playlist, the next time you want to add a video, you can just like it and then click on that playlist's name. If you're using YouTube on a mobile device like an iPhone or an iPad, you can't add kids' videos to playlists, but videos that you've liked are automatically saved to a playlist called Liked Videos. You can see this and any other playlists you've created by clicking on Library. That means you can make playlists when you're using YouTube on a computer and then watch them on a mobile device later. So let's do a quick quiz to make sure that you remember everything we covered, because we have covered a lot already. It'll work the same way as the poll that you, anyway, we'll just actually do it on the screen. So here's our first question. Why is spying on kids online not usually a good idea? Is it because it tells them you don't trust them? Because it makes them worry more about hiding things from you than fixing things that went wrong? Because kids can get around spy software, or all three of those? Take a second to think what you think is the right answer. And it is all of those. So, of course, one problem with spying on kids is because it tells them that you don't trust them. And so they're going to worry more about hiding things from you. It's also true that kids can get around spy software. And so they're going to put more effort and attention into hiding what they're doing than getting help if things go wrong. All right, second question. You probably shouldn't give your kids a smartphone until they can afford to pay for data themselves, they're ready to use the internet without you watching them, you're sure they won't lose it, or all of those. It's hard to watch what kids are doing with a smartphone. So you need to be sure that they know how you expect them to behave online. Of course, it's great to be sure that they're not going to lose it, although there are ways that you can track a lost phone, but really that's not the key issue. And it's not necessarily essential to wait until they can pay for data themselves, though you may choose to make that a condition if you want to. But what really matters is that that you feel that they understand how you want them to behave when they're using digital devices. Next question. What's more useful than trying to limit how much time kids spend online? Is it making them earn screen time by doing chores? Is it making them earn screen time by getting exercise? Is it steering them towards non-screen activities, or is it steering them to positive screen activities? Now, not all screen time is created equal. We generally want to give kids more time for activities that are social, active, creative, or educational. You can also limit screen time by saying screens aren't allowed at certain times and places, like meal times or in bedrooms. Now, it can be really valuable as well to steer them to non-screen activities, but make sure that these are things that they want to do, and ideally things you're doing with them, so that you show that you're committed to these non-screen activities. It's not just something you're telling them to do. We also recommend against having kids earn screen time, because the research suggests that that really just makes kids want more screen time. And in many cases, they figure out ways of gaming that system. But really, the problem with it is that it makes it seem as though it encourages them to feel that screen time is precious, rather than making them think of screens as devices, as tools that we use for a particular purpose at a particular time for a particular reason. All right, our last question for our halfway quiz. What's the difference between a YouTube channel and a YouTube playlist? Is it that a channel has all of a YouTuber's videos in one place, while a playlist is a list you make of videos to watch? Is it the opposite? Is it that a channel is free while you have to pay to view a playlist? Or is it that a channel can have ads while a playlist can't? So which do you think is the answer? If you remember, what is the difference between a YouTube channel and a YouTube playlist? All right, and we're getting answers. That's great. I love seeing answers in the quiz. And I think everyone who answered got this one right. You can make a playlist of just the videos you want your kids to watch. And you can also find a YouTuber that you and your kids like, or something like CBC or TVO, and watch their channel. So those are both useful things to know about playlists and channels. Now, a lot of the time, kids don't want to go to their parents when things go wrong because they're afraid they'll get in trouble. So make sure your kids know they should come to you if things go wrong, like if they can't figure out a game, or if they accidentally access something unpleasant. If they're in the habit of coming to you about the little things, they'll be a lot more likely to talk to you about the big ones. If they do come to you with a problem, take it seriously. What happens online can be just as real as what happens offline. While bad decisions might be a good learning opportunity in the future, when they first come to you, it's important to be supportive and reassure you that you're on their side, or they may not come to you next time. Of course, it's best to be ready to help when they come to you. Media Smarts has many parent resources like tip sheets, guides, and videos to help. For example, our tip sheet, Help, Someone Posted My Photo Without My Consent, gives advice on how you can get an unwanted photo taken down. It also explains how the law protects people who have had their sex shared. Now, it's okay to tell kids to take a break, but most of the time, you don't want to take away their phones, make them stop playing a game, or stop using a social network completely. Games and social networks are a big part of kids' lives, so telling them to stop going online is like telling them to shut down their social lives. It will also make them feel like they are the ones who are being punished, so it's really only appropriate when they are the ones at fault. So for instance, if they've seriously and repeatedly been mean or cruel to someone online, if they've shared an intimate image of someone without that person's consent, or if they've used a digital device to commit a crime like hacking or posting hate material. If something private gets out of your control, there are a few different ways to fix it. The first step is usually to ask someone who shared it to take it down from their accounts. This works more often than not. But if that doesn't work, or if you don't feel you can do that safely, you can report it to the place where it was posted, like Instagram or TikTok, or report to the police. Social networks won't often take down photos just because they're embarrassing, but if something is being used to harass you, they might. Sharing intimate images of someone is against the law in Canada, no matter how old the person in the picture is, and a judge has the power to have it taken down. So if that happens to you or to your child, report it to the police. You can also turn to the law if something being shared about you is defamatory, which means that it's not true, has been shared in a public place, and will hurt your reputation. But finally, if the thing went wrong is your child's fault, you have to help them do whatever they can to fix it. No matter how mad someone is, an apology and a sincere try to fix things will usually help. Remember that most kids spend time online with the same people they see offline, their friends, their family, their classmates. A lot of the drama they get involved in spreads over both online and offline worlds. So once your kids are on social networks or they're connecting with people in other ways online, tell them to come talk to you if anybody is ever mean to them. What's best, though, is to set clear rules so your kids know how you expect them to behave online. It may seem like the internet is a place where rules don't apply, but the rules you set for your kids still affect how they behave online. Now, your rules don't have to be just punishments for having done something bad. What's more important is to use them as a way of helping your kids understand the values you want them to live by. It might be hard to believe, especially if you have teenagers, but kids generally want the adults in their lives to set limits and to help them tell right from wrong. That way, they'll keep living by those values, even when you're not around, and when they're grown up and out on their own. Make sure your kids understand that the result of following these rules is trust. If you know that they understand and will follow the rules that you've negotiated together, you'll be able to trust them more. Remember that whether you're talking about treating people with respect or keeping screen time under control, what we do as parents sends a more powerful message than anything we say. Not every internet rule has to apply to everyone in the house. It makes sense for adults and older kids to follow different rules than younger kids. But do pay attention to the messages your kids get by watching you. Now, with younger kids, it makes sense to just explain the rules that you expect them to follow. But as they get older, they're a lot more likely to follow rules if they've been involved in making them. Before you renegotiate rules, ask some questions to find out which of the old rules they still remember. Do you feel like you know what things we expect you to do and not do when you're online? And do you know what to do if things go really wrong? It's also good to ask these questions at times when things are changing for your kids. So for instance, when they first get a phone, when they start using a new social network, or if they enter high school or move to a new school. So we're going to do another quick quiz to cover what we've touched on in the last little bit. So first question in our second quiz: why is it important to tell kids to come to you if anything goes wrong online? Is it so you know if they did anything bad online? Is it so they'll ask you for help if anything big ever goes wrong online? Is it so they know they'll never get in trouble for what happens online? Or so you can fix things right away if something goes wrong online? All right, getting great answers. And yes, I think everyone caught this is the second one. If your kids are in the habit of coming to you when little things go wrong, they'll be more likely to talk to you about the big ones. Now, of course, you do want to try to fix things if something goes wrong, but you won't always be able to fix them right away. You do probably want to know if they did something bad, but that's less important than knowing that they come to you. And finally, you can't promise them that they'll never get in trouble. Unfortunately, sometimes it is our kids who are at fault. Sometimes they are the ones who've done something wrong. So we can't promise them they'll never get in trouble, but we can promise them that we will help them try to fix the mistake they made. All right, next, which of these is a good reason to take away a device or to take away internet access? Is it if they've been seriously and repeatedly mean to someone? Is it if they've downloaded an app without telling you? Is it if they've broken your screen time rules? Or is it if they've watched a video you don't think is appropriate for kids? Which of those is a good reason to take away a device or take away their internet access? All right, getting lots of great answers. And yes, you should only take a device away if your child has done something seriously wrong. So downloading an app without telling you, that's almost certainly going to be against your household rules, but it's not a really serious violation. It's something where you should talk to them, something maybe where you delete the app. Maybe there is some other kind of consequence, but not taking away the device or taking away internet access. Same thing with breaking screen time rules. And in terms of watching a video, keep in mind how easy it is, especially if you haven't turned off autoplay, if you're not using restricted mode. It's very easy to wind up watching a video that you didn't intend to watch. So those three, downloading an app, screen time rules, possibly watching an inappropriate video, those are things you want to act on. You want to maybe set up better technical safeguards to keep them from downloading things, maybe because you can set it so that they need your permission to download things on their devices. Maybe you want to have another discussion about screen time rules. Maybe you want to help them find ways to avoid seeing inappropriate content. There may be some punishments involved in all of those, but really you should only take a device away if your child has done something seriously wrong. All right, and what is the most important thing for rules about using the internet? Is it that they're clear about how kids will be punished if they break them? Is it that they apply equally to everyone in the family? Is it that they get across the values you expect your kids to live by? Or that they cover everything that might go wrong when your kids are online? Wow. Getting answers right away. This is great. So here is our answer, that what really matters is that they get across the values you expect your kids to live by. The fact is, most kids aren't actually that worried about getting punished, particularly teens. In fact, the fear of punishment has almost no effect on teens whatsoever, but they do care about what you think is right and wrong. And they also care about what they think is normal for their peer group. So getting across the values you expect your kids to live by, and also, for instance, helping them understand that really very few kids are cyberbullying, that very few kids post hate content, that very few kids send sex, and even fewer share them without consent. Helping them understand that all of these behaviors are actually quite uncommon helps them resist any pressure they might feel. Looking at the other ones, we don't necessarily need to make a clear consequence. You can have consequences, but they're not absolutely necessary. As we already said, your rules aren't always going to apply to everyone in the family. As much as possible, you want them to apply to everyone, but there are going to be exceptions. And of course, your rules can never cover everything that might go wrong when your kids are online. And that's why the most important rule is for your kids to come to you when they need help. And what sends the most powerful message to kids about how you expect them to behave online? Is it the rules you set for them, the punishments you set for breaking those rules, whether your kids, you trust them, or how you behave online? So we're getting different answers on this one. This is great. We've got a slight difference of opinion from people answering our questions. And that's because all of these are important, really, except the punishments. And nobody, I don't think, answered that one. All three of the other ones are important. Of course, the rules are important. Trust is important. But the most powerful message that we send to our kids is by how we ourselves behave. What we do sends a more powerful message than anything we say. That doesn't mean we shouldn't have rules. We absolutely should. But particularly when it comes to things like screen time, they get the more powerful message from watching what we do. So I'm going to wrap up just by showing you a few of the things that you might look at to explore these issues further. So first, this is the parent section of our website, mediasmarts.ca, and you can see we have blogs, we have games, we have tip sheets, we have videos, all kinds of things. You can also access this and other digital smarts workshops. Digital smarts workshops, including this one, are ones that we created to teach practical digital skills to all Canadians. They are at 3 levels of familiarity. So the Discover workshops are made to help people who are just getting started with digital technology. They focus on the most basic skills of using the internet. The Explorer workshops, like this one, are made to help people who are already using digital technology get more out of it. They focus on building your confidence and broadening your horizons. And the Navigate workshops are made for active internet users who are running into new challenges online. They focus on helping you be a smart and safe internet user. And like all of our other resources, you can access the workshops and everything that goes with them on our website. And one thing I want to mention is something we recently collaborated on with TVO, and this is a series called Wacky Media Songs. It's a series of short videos. They're each about 1.5 minutes. They're really fun and musical, and they introduce all kinds of essential digital media literacy topics and concepts and skills to kids from kindergarten to grade 3. And so you can watch these on the TVO Kids website. You can watch them also on YouTube, and on our website, we have handouts of discussion starters. So things you can discuss with your kids before and after watching the video. That's the workshop. So let's see if anybody has any questions that we haven't covered so far. So once again, you could either put your question in the chat, or if you would rather ask it out loud, you can use the raise hand function and we'll call on you. All right, so our first question is, what is the recommended screen time on weekdays and weekends? So as you heard at the beginning, I actually was a member of the Canadian Pediatric Society's Digital Health Task Force, which came up with the current screen time recommendations. And so in part, it depends on how old kids are. So for very young kids, that is to say kids under 2, we recommend actually keeping screen time as close to 0 as possible. And it's not because screens are bad for kids. It's because at that very young age, kids are going through so much development. They need things that screens can't provide. They need to explore the world around them. They need to experience sensations, sights and sounds and tastes and textures, and they need to interact with other people, and they don't get any of those things from screens. Really, the only exception is video chatting with someone that they already know. So if you video chatting with a parent, if you have to go on a trip or something and video chat with the child, if they've met the grandparents and video chatting with the grandparents. But other than that, keep screen time for very young kids as close to 0 as possible. For older kids, 2 and up, we do recommend a target of 2 hours as a maximum. But one of the reasons we don't really like to think too much about that is because we don't want necessarily to say that it's okay to do 2 hours of screens every day. There probably are going to be some days, particularly weekdays, when you might want to have less screen time. And as I mentioned earlier, what you're doing with screens is more significant than how much time you're spending. So if your child is reading a book, or if they're using their device to make a video, or if they're playing something active that gets them outside, like Pokemon Go, those are things where you want to be willing to give them more time. If they're just watching videos, if they're just playing a video game by themselves rather than with someone else, if they're just scrolling social media, then you want to give them less time. And again, you want to make sure that there are times and places where screens are not allowed, particularly the bedroom, and that's probably the most important, but also we recommend things like family meals or other family activities, and any other time that you feel is appropriate to be screen-free. All right, do we have any other questions? All right, looks like that was our only one. So once again, any one of these topics we covered tonight, we have resources on the website anyone can access that go into much greater depth into things like managing screen time, protecting your privacy, dealing with cyberbullying, really everything that we've addressed and lots of other things. So I encourage you to please check those out. And okay, we have one question. My second question, my 12-year-old wants a cell phone, but I don't think she's ready. But everybody in her class has one. How can she deal with peer pressure? So this is an interesting question, because one of the things that we found in our research is that actually most kids do not get their first smartphone because they asked for it. Most kids get their first smartphone because their parents gave them one in order to be able to keep in touch with them. So it's not actually, now obviously it is the case here, but in most cases, it's not that kids are asking for smartphones, or cell phones, it's that their parents are giving them to them. So in this case, that, you might ask your daughter, daughter, I guess, why they want to have a cell phone. What is it that they want to do that they can't yet do, that they can't do without it? Because if all of their friends are making plans, then it can be difficult. You can be left out. Now, it's possible to use social networks, presumably, or even send texts without a cell phone. What I would recommend is talking to her about what she wants to do with it. What are her friends doing it? Why does she feel she needs it? But the other thing that I will tell you is that there are times when kids appreciate us being the bad guy. So one of the examples that we use there is having a phone in the bedroom, because when kids bring a phone into the bedroom, a lot of the time it is because they feel an obligation to their friends, because they know their friends are going to be on social networks at all hours, and they're worried that their friends are going to be upset if they miss something, because it's considered to be polite. It's considered to be supportive of your friends, that when they post a photo, you immediately like it and say something really nice about it. Or if someone posts that they're feeling down, you immediately post something cheerful and encouraging. And so kids worry that if they don't have their phone with them in the bedroom at night, In the morning, there will be all of these things that happened, and their friends will all be mad at them. Why didn't you like my photo? Why didn't you post something encouraging? But of course, they won't say those things out loud. They'll just be mad, and you won't know why. And so kids actually, in these cases, appreciate it. They may never admit it to you, but they appreciate it when they can say, I'm sorry I missed whatever. My mean old dad won't let me take my phone into the bedroom, so I couldn't check it until the morning. So in this case, I think the question is not how she can deal with peer pressure, but how you can deal with peer pressure. And I think the decision that you need to make is, how important is it to you that she not have a cell phone? If you don't think she's ready, then don't give her one, and be willing to be the bad guy. All right, so last call for questions. All right, so the last thing I will say is that if you do decide now or later, if you do decide that your child is ready for a smartphone, then that's the time to make sure that you've clearly articulated rules about how you want them to behave. And that means that you need to have had a discussion with them about what they're going to be doing with the phone, why they want it, what apps they're going to be using, what social networks they're going to be joining, who they're going to be contacting, have that initial conversation to set those rules. So this may be a good time to maybe start thinking about that. Maybe now you can start having those conversations, and that's going to start the process that eventually, when you feel she's ready, will lead to her having a phone. All right. Well, thank you so much for everyone. These were great questions and terrific participation in our quizzes.
Thank you so much, Matthew. This was an amazing presentation. I am a 10-year-old myself, and honestly, I learned a lot tonight. So thank you so much for this. So this presentation was recorded and will be posted on our YouTube channel in the following weeks. So keep an eye out for the video, the recording of this. And do visit mediasmarts.ca. It's a great site. Lots of resources. I firmly intend to myself. And we also have another presentation by Media Smarts on Friday at 1:30 called Navigate Online Information. Make sure you attend that one, because it's very important to make sure that the information we're navigating online is from a trusted source. So thank you so much again, Matthew, for the presentation. Thank you, everybody, for attending, and have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, Nathan. Thanks, everyone, for coming out.